Welcome one and all. A long time coming. Welcome back to another Trotec Laser live on Fridays. I'm so glad to be joined by James today. James, how are you, sir?
Best day ever.
Awesome. I think maybe we'll give people a couple minutes to join in. If you are watching, I'll introduce myself. I'll introduce James. We'll give people a few minutes to jump in and maybe give you guys a little bit of information about Trotec. If this is your first time watching us, not to worry. You've picked an excellent first stream to join. This is going to be a really great one. We don't often get to talk about starting your own engraving business, but we have the heavy hitter, Mr. James Minshaw, with us today, who, as I understand it, perhaps may have run his own, was somewhat the name tag king of British Columbia for a time, if I'm not mistaken. So you're in very good hands today. But yeah, definitely say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. And if you have any questions, never hesitate to interrupt us. Toss them in the chat. We've got our producer Lev helping us in the background here, showing some of these cool videos and stuff. So never hesitate to toss your questions in chat, and we will grab them. We'll try and answer them as we go along, or in a big session, near the end. But so a little bit about us. James, do you want to maybe introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello. I'm James, obviously from British Columbia. I've been working with these fun little lasers since 2000. So that's 22 years, coming up on 23. Crazy. I love watching people grow a business. It's one of my favorite parts, is that, I'll hook up a machine for them, and I feel this sort of tentative weight on their shoulders as they say, did I make a good decision? And then, go visit them 6 months later, and they're like, come over here, look at this. Oh, wait, no, come over, look at this. Come over here, look at this. And they're showing me the things they did, and they'll come over to me, and they'll be like, you made me a whole bunch of money. And I'm like, no, it wasn't me, actually. I just helped you make the right decision. You did it yourself. And it's been, and that's like the best part of what I do. But I do it through knowing, my hardware, obviously, knowing my software, knowing exactly how, you guys work. I can have like a 10-minute conversation and already know your future. I've been running this so long that I can just know what you're about to do just with a short conversation. So it's and that's not just me, but all of our reps across the world can help you guys out with knowing what to do. We're not like these used car guys who are trying to get as many machines out. It's in my best interest to make sure you're super successful with the machine, because if you're not, then we can't sell you materials. If you're very successful, then we get to sell you more materials, and the more success we produce for you guys, the more materials we're allowed to sell you, or at least have the opportunity to sell you. So this is how we run our businesses. If we can build you up, then we can use you for material farming. So anyway, that's how I run. That's who I am. I've lots of experience and love watching people grow.
Absolutely, one of British Columbia's best established material farmers. No, I know, just so you meet. No, you're exactly right. And I mean, when talking about a business, right, I think it can be tempting sometimes to beat around the bush a little bit. But, James is exactly right. I mean, number one, James and I are both at Trotec Canada, so we represent, a lot of the information we're going to pass you today might be kind of specific to Canada, but anything we tell you about, the lasers and the equipment, obviously will be, basically across the board. But we'd encourage you, even if you're watching from, US or overseas or wherever. Absolutely. I mean, Saskatoon. Yeah, man. My stomping grounds, born and raised.
Oh, wow.
We'd encourage you to, reach out to your local Trotec. We're here to help. And on a wide variety of topics. I mean, James, you sort of alluded to this a little bit, but, lasers are such a flexible tool, and there are so many different kinds of businesses that you can create with a laser as kind of a very fundamental piece of equipment that, James, I think, has been fortunate in his 22 years to get to see a lot of different kinds of businesses and a lot of different kinds of things that people do with the laser. I mean, we could never do an exhaustive list, but, what are some of the ones that you see most often, James? If someone's interested in laser and they're thinking about starting their own small business, what are the types of businesses you see most often?
Gosh, I get that a lot. Like, somebody who's about to drop a bunch of money down on a laser. They're like, how many other lasers are in Vancouver or are in Victoria? And you're like, well, lots, but they're all doing something different.
Way different stuff.
Somebody's like wanting to like make these bespoke wooden guitar picks, and they're like, how many other people are doing this? And you're like, you're the only one. Like,
I promise.
Yeah. So I mean, there's lots of people using these to make signs, but every sign shop has a Roland wide format printer, or I shouldn't say brand names. Just that's what I call it. It's kind of like Kleenex, but a wide format printer, and every sign shop has a laminator, and every sign shop has, but it's not like they corner the market on laminators, right? So sign shops are a big one. Obviously engraving shops and things like this, but like it's so varied that I can't say there is one particular thing that I see the most. But I guess sign shops is what I would have to say.
No, and that's fair, and I say that exactly for that reason too. It's if you are concerned, you're thinking about getting in, even if it is a sign shop, right? You're interested in starting a sign shop, but you're worried, how will I differentiate myself from other sign shops? I mean, just by virtue of the background that you have, it will very likely affect the clients that you serve. I mean, I'm going to fire up our presentation here in a couple of seconds, I think. But one of the areas we'll probably look at covering is some of the different markets you might look at serving as a general engraver with a laser. And one thing, we usually recommend is that if you have connections, if you know people who work already in the restaurant industry, if you know people who work in the construction industry, whatever it is, those are potentially connections that you can use to then branch out. So, you might have access to contacts that, the sign shop across the street might kill to have, but, just by virtue of who you are and the experience you have, you might have something special to offer. So, I'd encourage you not to undersell yourself. And also, if you're interested in, woodworking or something that we didn't mention, this can still be a webinar for you also. I mean, the lasers are very at home with a lot of different materials. So,
well, the thing is that lots of my customers start off wanting to do one thing. They're like, I'm going to make bespoke wooden guitar picks. And then you're like, awesome, that's cool. Okay. And then 6 months later, they get a request for, some military contract, and they're like, that's what we do now. And then I come and see them 8 months later, and I'm like, hey, how's the guitar picks going? Oh yeah, we still make those, but actually our big money is this little anodized blanks, or we're cutting out acrylic. So things change, and the cool part is that these things can do everything. So totally, all you need to do is contact one of us and say, hey, I'm thinking of changing. How do I do it? So
absolutely, yeah. I love the idea too of the person who starts out making guitar picks and musical instruments, and then somehow pivots to working for the military. Like it's honestly, cool.
It happens all the time, more than you think it, because somebody gets the guitar pick and says, oh, this guy must have a laser, so maybe they can do something for us. So cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'll launch my presentation here, but as you guys have seen in the videos here in the background that Lev was showing, to James's point, there really are a lot of different materials that the laser is perfectly at home with. And so, it's one of these things that, we'll cover off some of them really quick here in some of our early slides. But if you guys have any questions, hey, could this thing work on the laser? I mean, throw it in the chat. We'll be sure to grab it.
Absolutely.
Really, really quick, you can find this information on our website, but very fast about Trotec. The story we really love to tell, I think, is how Trotec, so our sister company, Trodat, is a stamp manufacturer. And as the story goes, as it's been explained to me, they were looking for a laser that was capable of creating stamps with the quality that met their expectations. And when they couldn't find one, they invested in starting to make their own. And now, some 20-something years on, I believe, Trotec exists as what I would argue are the highest quality lasers on the market. We have incredible customers, we have incredible machines, and it's made us very fortunate and very successful kind of the world over. As a subsidiary, though, here in Canada specifically, we've been operating, I think, actually now even longer than this slide. Maybe I think we are up to 13 or 14 years potentially.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show, at our 4 offices. Wow, it took me by surprise.
Sorry about that. Wake up, everybody from the West Coast.
Yes. A little sweat. Wait, James is on the West Coast.
That's me.
So really quickly, these are kind of very general, but they are pretty true to form, I think. Reasons why somebody might look at starting your own business in general, even if it isn't an engraving business, but being able to be your own boss is a huge one, of course, set your own hours. Having the financial independence that offers you. So, being able to work hard and see the result of that. The pursuit of a passion or an idea and the creative freedom, I think, kind of go together. To your example, James, I don't mean to keep coming back to the guy making the guitar picks, but I personally think it's a pretty cool application. If that's something if you see that hole in the market, why doesn't this thing exist? The laser is a really powerful tool to be able to allow you to prototype or to even create final versions of whatever that thing might be pretty straight away. It doesn't require, we'll look at it a little bit more, and I encourage you, if you're interested, to come see your local Trotec rep for an actual demo. We won't be able to get too much today into how the laser works itself, but you can always check out our YouTube channel, of course, for more videos. But the laser has a lot of flexibility when it comes to, you can do a production level piece without necessarily having a ton of background in design or production. And then I think the expanding your skills and knowledge is a big one. So the flexible schedule obviously ties back into being your own boss, the financial independence, being able to kind of set your own time. But expanding your skills and knowledge is a cool one, even to what you were talking about, James. Not only here's an opportunity to maybe learn design software or learn how to use a laser, obviously, but then, as you said, if you're interested in making, thing X, and then suddenly somebody hears you have a laser and you get a call from an industry you've never heard of before, but now, hey, you're working with this industry you're not familiar with. You can meet some cool people, you can learn some new stuff.
I've learned so much. I was a designer before I started with lasers, and I had a small skill set of software. And now it's just like every time something comes up, you have to learn the software to do it. Somebody wants 3D application. Suddenly, now I'm sitting and learning 3D software and loving it. And then now I have a leg up on my competition.
True.
That I can do this, and it forces you to want to learn new things. That's always been my thing, because I ran a laser shop for 7 years, so I know what it's like. I successfully built it from 0 customers and sold it successfully in the end. So it's that's just how that works.
The name tag king. No, I wasn't joking. But
the name tag guy. The name tag guy.
No, in my heart you're the king, but I know you.
I wasn't the king.
No, be pretty bold. It'd be a kingly move to declare yourself the king, but it would be I will say though, so you're absolutely right, and I consider myself very, very fortunate for. I really love what I do, but then also just the people that we get to meet. You get to see some of this in the videos that Lev is showing, but the variety of different applications that you can do with a laser also means that we get to meet people from all different walks of creativity and different kinds of applications and things. To that end, I want to quickly just very fast pass through this sheet. You'll have, and Lev points it out in the chat there, but just for the anybody who's maybe just joining us, there will be a link sent out to everybody who registered, so you can always review this. You don't need to quickly take a screenshot or take it down unless you want to, of course, but this kind of represents a lot of what a laser can work with. So if you're thinking about doing something that's you're not sure, here is kind of your general cheat sheet.
There will be a test at the end. So
yes, exactly. The Scantron. I hope everyone's brought their number 2. Yeah, I haven't heard that name in a while.
Wow.
They still use them.
Do they? Wow.
Oh, you betcha. More interestingly, though, than just the materials is the sort of stuff that you can make. And again, we could never show everything that you can make with a laser on one slide, but hopefully this starts to give you a cool kind of what's your appetite a little bit. So James, I wanted to defer to you in looking over this. I agree with a lot of the questions and a lot of the essentials that this slide points out there, but I want to pose a question to you. When you were starting your laser business, what were the main questions that were going through your head? What were the things you were concerned about in trying to pick what would be your first laser?
Can I pay this damn thing off every month?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one.
That was my number one question for about 3 months. How am I going to do this? What? And see, I unfortunately for me, I didn't start with a Trotec, so I got zero support at the beginning. Basically, some dude came, I said, I want a laser, and he said, okay. And then one showed up in my shop, and he came and hooked it up electrically. And then I was like, okay, cool. Well, let's make a plan to come back. And he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, okay. And so that was my question. How do I actually make this thing pay? Because I literally sat down and went, I have a yellow page ad. This was a long time ago, folks. I have a yellow page ad. Why aren't my phones ringing? I really thought that the phones would ring off the hook as soon as the day I decided to start. But it wasn't like that. So yeah, that was my question. How am I paying this thing off?
Well, it's something we're going to look at later. ROI is a huge question. I mean, it is the question in a lot of cases. For us, I mean, again, we sort of differentiate maybe between, you can see it here on the slide, what might be between a quote unquote hobby laser, something that maybe is designed a little bit more for more casual use, and then a production style laser. So one, a little bit more geared around that production question, but those borders are getting grayer and grayer, I would suggest. What is the smallest machine for a home shop? Well, that's a question. I think for us, I mean, I would say still the Ragejet 50, right? Probably would be the best.
Yep. Excellent home shop use. If you're looking to make, more than $600 a month, the Ragejet's going to be perfect. And go from there. A lot of people start off with the Ragejet, and the cool thing is they upgrade up really, really well. So there's your question, and it's a good segue into this from hobby to production laser. The Ragejet bridges the gap between hobby laser and production laser. I've got sign shops that use Ragejets, and they use them way too often, more than I'd like. I'd be like, well, it's time to get up to a Speedy 300. No, our Ragejet's fine. And you're like, but you're producing acrylic, cut out letters all day long. What? Aren't you gonna make a better laser? Nah, we're fine. But it does bridge the gap between hobby laser and professional laser, because you can run it in a shop. And I mean, I wouldn't want to run it, 8 to 12 hours a day. That thing, the poor little power supply in that thing would, take a beating. But seems that people do. So, I
mean, it's a statement on the quality of the machine, that it takes that 8 to 12 hour a day beating and just keeps ticking. But I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly, I think, the same thing. It's what I love about the Ragejet, and this goes for our machines in general. I mean, the Rayjet is a bit of a special case. You can see it there in the video. It's got an 18 by 12 bed. It's limited to a 30-watt laser. It's a powerful little guy. It's probably one of my favorite machines we make, just for the virtue of the fact that it is so flexible and easy to bring around. But by and large, with our machines, as they get bigger and bigger, they don't necessarily get better. The level of quality that a Speedy 100 can do is very, very, very near identical to the Speedy 400. The Rayjet still, though, is just kind of one step removed from the Speedies. So although it still gives super high quality, it is just kind of that one step down.
Well, it's speed, right? Like, if you take a laser that's about the same price as that, and we're not going to mention any names in here, but you take a very popular glass tube laser, and you put it up against this thing. This thing's it's gonna maybe you make a 10 by 10 square. The glass tube laser is going to take an hour and a half to do. The Rayjet's going to take 12 minutes. It's a massive difference in speed. But anyway.
Well, and I think you make a very good point in saying that you have sign shops who are running an active business with the Rayjet. I mean, it's a way of letting you know that it is a powerful enough machine to sustain a sign shop long enough that James has to make a call out post here on YouTube to be like, upgrade to the 300 for heaven's sake.
Yeah, it's true. You know who you are.
Yeah, please. It'll be so much faster.
Yeah.
But this kind of ties into this next question here, right? Of some of the things you might want to consider. And I mean, I think a lot of them, again, are sort of self-evident, but they are worth looking at and considering, because they do come into this question of budget, right? I mean, budget versus bed size. Obviously, as the machine gets bigger, it gets more expensive. As it gets bigger and more powerful, it gets more expensive. Quality is a really, really big one. And I encourage you, when you come in for a demo with us, as I hope you will, to really look at the build quality of the machine, because this is a machine that, although they are quiet and they work really hard, they are, that little head of the laser, as you've seen in the videos, is moving very, very quickly left to right. And you have that sort of force that's generated side to side in the laser. And it, as you say, 8 to 12 hours, 5 or 7 days a week, it takes a beating. And so, I'm proud to say that our lasers are built with kind of that level of stress and work in mind all the time.
Our engineers, I shouldn't say we, I didn't have any
me neither
part of making these. The engineers look 10 years into the future when building one of these machines. They don't look at the date of purchase or the date after warranty. They're looking 10 years ahead. They build these machines to last. And what I mean by last is they're using they start with a welded steel chassis. And this is important, really important. And we don't put enough emphasis on this because it's just not sexy to make videos about. But the welded steel chassis of our Speedy machines make it so that it is rigid. If you build them out of aluminum, the tensile strength of aluminum has the chassis bending slightly over time. Now, you don't see it, but what happens is as the laser beam bounces against 4 mirrors to get into the lens, that the accuracy of each one of those beam paths needs to be perfect. Now, of course, there's alignment mirrors to stop this from happening, but at some point those alignment mirrors aren't going to be enough, and that chassis will actually bend itself out of alignment with all the forces of the laser going back and forth. That aluminum chassis is going to put itself out of alignment at some point. And you can't, there's no way to stop that. And this is why we use a welded steel chassis, not a bolted together aluminum chassis. So this welded steel chassis, to me, is one of the number one things that that I love about these units. And so there's a number of lasers out there that use welded steel chassis. And so if you're looking around at the different ones, and of course, please do, you'll find that the very best lasers, the ones that are going to last the longest, have the welded steel chassis on them.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so this is why we aim to the future for engineering, is because you need that.
One last thing I wanted to touch on here, and I skipped ahead. I'm excited to talk about ROI, but kind of one last point here. We make the point here of fiber versus CO2 versus flex. So really quickly, James, would you be able to sort of take us through, what we mean by flex? So what the fiber versus CO2 question, and then also, the things that you might want to look at if you're a new laser purchaser in comparing, because you mentioned glass tubes versus say like some of our ceramic core tubes, just what your concerns, because that too represents a big part of the value of that machine.
Yeah, I mean we have all three, so we know how all three types of tubes work. So for the people who are unaware, there are at the bottom of the list are glass tubes. Now a glass tube laser uses pure electricity to produce its laser power. So it's basically forcing so much electricity through, and I'm really dumbing this down. It forces heavy duty amounts of electricity through to produce a laser beam from the CO2, to pump the CO2 for a laser beam. These tubes are quite slow because you need all this energy to flash on and then off in order to make one pulse of the laser. And as you see this laser going back and forth on the video, you need to pulse 25,000 times to get across there. So if you can only pulse back and forth very slowly, then we have to slow the machine down in order to make it engrave where we want it. And so we have to slow it down considerably with a glass tube in order for us to actually engrave with it. So that is the big minus on the glass tube. That and they don't last quite as long, but they're very cheap to replace, and so there's sort of the plus on those. But to me, if I'm going to try to make money engraving something, I'm going to stay very far away from a glass tube. Then we have the metal tubes, which are just a metal block with a little bit of components inside. They have the CO2 gas, and so they use radio frequency, but the radio frequency is on the inside of the chamber. So the radio frequencies, because it's in complete contact with the gas that makes the laser, and it tends to wear out a little faster. But they're very, very fast because they use radio frequencies instead of pure,
raw
barn door electricity.
Power.
They can flash on and off. It's kind of like you, Don, start turning the light on and off with a incandescent bulb, and I turn the light on and off with a fluorescent light bulb, and we see how many times we can turn it on and off in an hour, and you're going to have 10 times more on and offs than I am. So, and then we get to the ceramic core tubes, which are in all of our speedies. These take that metal tube concept where we're using radio frequency. We put the gas on the inside, just gas on the inside of this big block, heavy duty block of aluminum ceramic, and then we shoot the radio waves through the ceramic because it's an inert material. We can shoot electricity through it without or not electricity, but radio waves through it, and so a lot like the glass tube, we can go very, very, very fast, but we're not scrubbing out that material because we are putting the antennas, if you will, on the outside. And so these tubes last a very, very long time. Like if you keep your laser in the kind of environment that we ask you to, you're going to get many years out of that. I mean, 7 years, 8. I've seen 10-year laser tubes. But yeah, that's the reality of that. It's long lasting, very, very fast, and electrically efficient.
One thing I think that's worth mentioning too, so where you would find those kind of different types of tubes. So, you're talking about the glass tubes, oftentimes any, again, what we might call a hobby machine, but what, you might see online in a lot of cases, typically if a machine is below a certain price, more often than not, I think it's fair to say we'll have a glass tube. Certainly, I'm sure there are some exceptions, but oftentimes kind of the more entry level machines will have a glass tube. A metal tube represents probably more of a production style machine usually, because they represent a considerably higher investment usually, I would say. I think that's fair to say. And then the ceramic core tubes, unless I'm mistaken, I mean, as I say, I think they are sort of unique to our speedies in a lot of cases. I mean, you can't really find them elsewhere. They're a bit of a Trotec special. One last point here I want to touch on before we move on. So ease of use is a big thing, but very much, depends on the individual. I think, James, you made a point about how, you can go out and learn new software. And I would say that in 2022, it has never been easier to go out and learn a new software. Like as somebody who had to learn CorelDRAW in school once upon a time compared to somebody who would be learning CorelDRAW now, I feel like pretty jealous of.
I learned CorelDRAW in the 90s, and basically I was given a job to build catalogs, and they gave me CorelDRAW, and I'm like,
and the tablets, the stone tablets with the instructions on it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I'm not Mike Clark. No, hi, Mike. No, it was so hard because all I had was the CorelDRAW manual book. I did not have YouTube, and gosh, it took me years to learn it, let alone master it. So,
yep. Yeah. I was the same thing with Photoshop and the Adobe Suite. It's until somebody tells you that you don't know that something either are features you don't even know, you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? Which sounds silly, but
that's true.
Yeah, it's never, there's never been a better time, I would say.
Correct.
So the last thing that was on that slide, and we'll move on to maybe ROI or something that obviously is another big question for pricing a laser job and kicking off your business. But the last one that was on there is support, and I just want to make a very quick point of this, that at each Trotec location across Canada, the Calgary, Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto, they each have local technicians with local spare parts. The machines are manufactured in Austria, but we keep stock of everything, materials, machines, spare parts, and service staff here local. So not that it happens very often, but if anything ever were to break or something was to go wrong, you can reach out to us directly. I mean, we have a very quick little web form you can fill out that goes right to the right person, pops into their email, their personal email, and they can get back to you right away. We have somebody locally that you can reach out to regular business hours. I mean, we're here to help. Again, James, having run a business, you understand what it means if your laser goes down and your business has to grind to a halt. And, it's something we never, ever want to see happen. So
no,
we're here to help.
Yeah, we get embarrassed.
Yeah. It sounds so silly, but like there's a certain sense of taking ownership over our customers' businesses in a way, right? Like we have clients sort of like
think of it. I always think of it as the farmer, because we manufacture the materials, because we sell them, and because we sell a production-based machine. A production-based machine doesn't mean that it's never going to break down. It means that it's going to run for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of hours before it breaks down. But it's going to, at some point in your career, your laser will stop working. And this is why we have techs, and this is why we have 7 of them across just Canada, so that you have enough support to say, hey, my machine's making a beeping sound and won't work. Somebody's on the case immediately, and the case won't go away until you say, I'm satisfied. And then we add that application engineer who's got the experience in all the software, and who you can send your weird application to, say, somebody wants me to engrave this weird plastic, can you tell me how to do it? And they work with you on it to help you get that application right. And this is all because we are able to keep you successful. Then chances are you'll keep buying our material. I always like to say it's a win-win. We're not just doing all this to make you happy. We're doing it to make us happy too. We want to be able to sell as much material as we can because we manufacture it. So we want to make sure you are successful. If you're making money, we're making money. I don't just want to stick you with a bill for a burnt out motor or something. I want to stick you with a bill for something that you're making 300% on.
Absolutely right.
Rant over.
Well, and I think the other side of it too is like the creative communities and the customers that we serve are they are a community. I mean, particularly now, right, with Facebook groups and everything online, we depend a lot on people to refer us and to let people know that Trotec lasers are great and they're worth the investment, and you should be brave and take that initial plunge, right, to start your business. I mean, it's a scary, as you said, right, that initial thing that goes through your mind of like, is this, oh man, like, is this a good idea?
Of course
right?
it is.
But at the end of the day, when you look online and you see the stories and you can interact with those individuals, and I would encourage you to do so. Certainly, I mean, like, don't hesitate to reach out to people, particularly, smaller businesses that do something, kind of around the size that you're interested in starting, to ask them about their experiences. I mean, again, don't be shy, don't be nervous. People, by and large, in those creative and laser communities, at least that I've met in my experience, have been wonderful. And they want to share this thing that they're passionate about. So, never hesitate to reach out and kind of go for it.
That's right.
So coming to this question then of ROI, because this is one where I really want to defer to James a little bit. This is something you have far more experience in than I do. And it's a tough question. It seems like an obvious one in the beginning, but the more you start to try and pick it apart, the more kind of complicated it gets.
This is the most complicated part of the whole thing. And if you can get your
Yes.
head wrapped around this, the sooner you can get your head wrapped around how do I price a job, the quicker you can do this. And I love that number one is call the competition. Lots of competitors are happy to share their prices with other competitors, but don't just come out and do that until you've made rapport with your local guys. This happens in every single business I've ever been in, anywhere there's just hair. What? Oh wait, oh no, that's Wayne Gretzky. This happens in every single business. We find out what the other people are charging, and we do this by trying to we just call them and figure it out. Every so often I can tell when there's somebody looking for my price list for lasers. It's you just say what you say. Be proud of the price that you charge, because it has to be an interesting price. So find out what everyone else is doing, because if you're planning to sell that name tag for $35 each, and you wonder why nobody's buying them, then you finally go out and call the competition, and they say, oh, it's I sell them for $10.65 each.
Yeah.
You're like, oh well,
Oops.
maybe I'm not selling 3 times as much, so I better probably drop my price a little bit. You do not want to give away your product. It has to be so interesting for you to walk into that room where the laser is, and you have to look at that thing so excitedly. Now, some people look at it excitedly because they want to build models and cool things, and actually build cool stuff. And so, they look at it as not a money-making piece of gear, but like a thing that they can build their own projects with. And then they accidentally sell some stuff and make a little bit of money just to pay the laser off. And that's cool too. But when I used to walk into the room, I had to be interested in the laser. And how I did that is by making money. I was in it to make money, and it was a fun piece of equipment, but making money was number one. And if you charge too little and you say, oh, I'll just charge too little at first so that I get a bunch of customers, you're going to keep racing to the bottom. And there's nothing, and I've done this, there's nothing more depressing than taking on a $50,000 job that you spend $46,000 making. It's very depressing. And
Yes.
every day you're working until 3 a.m. to get this out, and you just I didn't make any money on this job. Just don't do it. So call the competition, find out how much they actually charge, and then obviously your services could be better than theirs. Charge more. Maybe your services are worse than theirs because you've just started out. Charge a little bit less, but keep it in the ballpark. Or else.
I don't mean to interrupt you, James.
Yeah.
I think you shared something with me once that I thought was so interesting about this, and it's something that I try to pass along to my customers as much as possible around this exact same thing, which is, it is definitely tempting to undercut your competition, and we all know businesses that do this, obviously, right? But it's, if you drop to a point where it's just about winning customers, you risk devaluing the work as a whole,
Yeah.
What you charge, just as much as anybody else, helps customers to understand what laser marking in general is worth. So, you set your price with that in mind, that like you help people to understand what the value of custom laser marking is, and don't sell yourself short. I mean, what you can do with the machine is very special, and it is something that adds value for people. And don't forget that that really means something to the customers who come to you.
And find reasons why you're more expensive. So you could have two people. Maybe you're doing this sort of bespoke home decor, and there's people in your neighborhood, not neighborhood, but your city, who are doing it with some kind of a hobby laser, and you've just bought a Trotec. Well, you can't expect to charge the same amount as these other guys, but maybe you have to, because the work keeps going to them. So you say, okay, I'll play your game. I will charge what you're charging, because they bought a very cheap hobby laser. But what you can do with your Trotec is 10 times more, 10 times faster, and probably 10 times more skill. So use the things that your professional laser does, like the fine engraving, the photographic engraving, the high speed, all these things that you can do that they can't. And now start pushing those things, charge a little more, and you'll be taking the market for sure.
Absolutely. So I don't know, James, if you want to even more quickly, we can kind of pass by some of these.
Sure. Yep. Absolutely. I mean, I could talk about this. I just heard a cat. It's weird. I don't own a cat.
No, I was thinking about so some of the other things that are here on this slide. I mean, we have some great videos on our YouTube channel with James about calculating ROI, and I really encourage you to look at some of those as well if this is a topic that interests you. But when you're looking at production expenses, and specifically like the break-even points and calculating gross margins, I mean, these are big topics, but we want to kind of touch off on maybe even some basic kind of places to start for some of them. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, any of you who are here and want to learn more about like every point on these slides, give me a call. I mean, this is what I'm here for, is to walk you through all of this stuff. So I'm here for it. So we can get to the real meat, the stuff that everyone wants to hear, is like, how am I going to actually make money with this stuff?
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
So again, we're fortunate that Lev's been showing a lot of really cool videos in the background. When you buy one of our lasers, one of the coolest things I think that it comes with is going to be this little kind of kit, this little starter kit, basically. We call it the starter kit, but it has in it a little book called the demo menu. In the demo menu, you are going to find 16 different individual jobs that give you some idea of different things that you can make using the free materials that come with your laser. This one is an example. And it gives us a chance to kind of look at, breaking down of an individual job, maybe some ROI kind of questions. But there are 15 more of these that come with the laser. So, if this seems like a cool thing or a cool exercise, I would encourage you to, again, come see a demo. We'd be happy to kind of take you through a few more of these, maybe check them out. But first and foremost, so James talked a little bit about the material that we manufacture. Absolutely, 100%. The Trolleys is probably, and has been for a long time, our most popular one. The Trolleys is like a lamicoid plastic, basically. It's like a 2-layered plastic, where, as you can see in the sort of illustration there on the right, the sort of core of it is all one color. It can be black, typically black, white, red, one of these colors, but it has a very, very thin layer on the surface that has a contrasting color, so that when you engrave the material, essentially that second color will pop through. So yeah, exactly. That's a great example there, Lev. Thank you. So, in first throwing that in the machine, it's just going to be a big yellow block, basically. And then as you engrave it, you're going to see that black, sub layer, that black core layer kind of pop through. It's the sort of thing that you would use for a lot of the signage that you would see around you day to day, washroom signage, office signage, all kinds of different things. Also, I will caution you, once you own a laser, you'll start to see things all around you that are made with laser. that you didn't notice previously, and you'll also start to ask yourself the question, could I make that with laser? And typically the answer will be yes. This is my this is, you have a very brief window into my mind. We're going to kind of take you through, this is something you can look at for any job, but both, if you were creating, one particular, in this case, it's a name badge, versus if you were creating on a full sort of quarter sheet piece of material, which is like a 12 by 24 inch piece of material where you could fit 64 of these individual name badges. Maybe, James, you could kind of touch off on this a little bit quickly, but, why it's important to try and, at least with the Trotec, try and fill up that bed as much as possible, or how best to optimize it, even if you don't necessarily get this sweet order of 64 badges that perfectly fit your laser bed kind of thing.
Exactly.
Typically it is optimized to go left to right. So you'll see it in the video here, but the laser head is kind of optimized moving left to right. We can get into a little bit more detail on why that is, but basically you're just trying to optimize the speed of the laser. You're trying to keep it at its maximum speed for as long as possible. Every time it has to turn around to come back the other way, it has to essentially brake, right? So the further that it can go while keeping that high speed without having to brake and slow down and come back, the more, that's, again, kind of like, say, simplifying it in a big way, but is that kind of a fair assessment, James? Is that sort of a fair way to look at,
Yeah, always try to batch your jobs in large parts, like what you're seeing on the screen here. Doing them one at a time, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
And it's also something, to James's point from before, the ceramic core tube, here's sort of an area where, the speed that it offers you kind of comes good. If you're doing this one badge, on the machine we tested it, it's a 360 flex in this particular case. You can see it there in the sheet. The one single badge to engrave fully and cut, which is, this entire black section is engraved, I'll remind you, took 1:19. On this side, yes, it took 43 minutes, but it's 64 badges. So by batching them together like this, we're reducing the time per badge to about 40 seconds, which is
64 seconds actually.
64 seconds. There you go. So 1:04. So we're still cutting out a good almost 15, 20 seconds from the overall thing, which is, if you're doing that on every single one, you're saving a minute every 4 batches kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is nothing considering you're paying for
that. I see. No. This, you've got 64 on there. Yeah, you're right. It's 40 seconds a sign. Or 40 seconds per name take. Sorry.
No, not at all. I'm glad you checked, because my math is.
No, your math is great. So that's a considerable savings in time for sure.
Yeah, it's almost roughly 2/3, right? You're cutting out almost a third of production time per batch. We're gonna look at this really quick. It's a lot of numbers, but again, you'll have the slides. So
if you have the slides, really pour into this.
Yeah. On the left side again, so this whole light blue column here is going to be looking at, how we might do a breakdown for that single badge. So setup fee. This is something, again, that James has hammered home to me the importance of, and I think he's completely bang on. No matter what job you are doing, you are charging your customer to some degree for your opportunity cost. So the fact that you have to turn on your laser, you have to come into the office, you have to set the laser up, you have to get the material out, potentially you have to pay an employee to do that, whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be $25. It is in our example here, but it's to say that, you're working on somebody's job instead of another job, and you're having to come in and take the time away from whatever else you could be doing to get this done. So, that's just a base fee for your time.
You have to charge a setup. There's so much time done before you're making that one name tag. You're talking to the customer, you're getting their art, you're maybe changing their art, fixing their art. There's so much done before you make that name tag, and you look at me and you say, how can you possibly charge $25.81 for one single name tag? Well, I never did I charge them $25 for one single name tag. I always made 2. If they were ordering one name tag, I would give them 2 for that price. It didn't cost me. It cost me what? 15 cents plus a pin, maybe 40 cents. It cost me maybe a $1.50 if I put a magnet on, but the customer was blown away. Like, they needed that one name tag. They needed it now. This is how much I charged. That's $25 for the name tag. They needed it. They had to get it done, so they paid it. But when they came to pick it up, there were 2 in there. and they were really, really, really appreciative of that, because it cost me nothing to do too, nothing
Yeah.
more, and it meant everything to the customer.
Well, and to your point, in both these instances, right, the left where we're making one badge, the right where we're making 64. In both cases, we're doing the same thing. We're still taking that same piece of material that's 12 by 24, putting it in the laser. In the one, we're only cutting one out, in the other, we're cutting 64 out. But the actual material is still the exact same. The other thing, James, you made the point, we don't account for artwork or design on this, because again, we're trying to keep it, at a basic.
With Ruby, it's you almost there almost is no art
Makes
anymore,
it a heck of a lot
unless
easier.
unless you're doing some serious stuff. That customer sends you a PDF of their logo, that goes directly into Ruby, and within seconds you have that badge made. So it's
Yep.
not, it's getting, and for 64 badges, you put them all against each other, and with Ruby you push the button to have the lines never overlap. Well, there's another thing that used to take me time
Ages.
inside of CorelDRAW or Adobe Illustrator to
Yep.
get all the lines not touching, and all these things are creating
Thank you,
a better software environment to make us faster, so we don't have to charge the customer all this extra money. I mean, or we could charge the customer this extra money and profit.
Yeah.
Whatever market you're in. If you're in a market that has hundreds of people doing the same thing, well, then you have to find ways of making it cheaper. If you're in a market where it doesn't, you have to find ways of making more money so you can buy bigger lasers.
Absolutely.
Shameless self-promotion.
I mean, I will say to James's point about doing two name tags, you never make one name tag for $25 or $28. That's absolutely true. And I will say too, when you're invoicing your customer for this, because this $25 setup fee is the same across both one tag or 64 tags, here is potentially your chance to say to the customer, look, like, you're going to pay the same setup fee whether I make one of these for you or 20 of these for you. The actual name tag, as you can, or as you'll see on the slide, is actually $3.
Yep.
So, for them, I mean, even here we've accounted for it. We've given 10% off on the price of the name tags because they're buying 64, right? So it's to be able to say to them, look, it will cost you $25 either way. If you don't want to pay, $28.77 for a single name tag, I can do 64 and give you 10% off. Kind of, it just, it helps you to kind of maybe start that discussion a little bit as well.
It's true. I became the name tag guy because I had a good idea. I went to these, there's networking lunches that you can go to where all the small businesses, where they all gather for a little $10 lunch somewhere, and everyone's they have their like 15 seconds to give their elevator speech, and you meet everyone and blah 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 blah. I love those things, and I love meeting people, and I would go to those constantly. And when I would get up for my 15 cents, I would do a fun little presentation, and then at the end I could say, hey, I can give you two name tags for $25. Well, at the time it was $20. This was a long time ago. I said, I can give you two name tags for $20. Anyone who wants to come get two name tags for, small business people love name tags, and so they flock to me. And every network meeting I would probably make $200-300. They would all come to me. I need this, and then after a while, those businesses would get big, and then they would buy their name tags from me. And this was a huge way that I sold name tags, was just by promoting it that way. And if you can do it, because two name tags for $25 is great money for you, especially if you're using Ruby software.
This was something I wanted to come back to later, but maybe I'll, just because I think you mentioned it now, it's a great segue. Every time I've shown this sheet at presentations, or I'll tell people about James, who I said 7 years, name tags, like maybe your biggest market. I know you did other things, but name tags being your biggest market. And very rightly, people will sometimes respond, you can't actually run a business just making name tags at $3 a piece. Absolutely, you can, and that's a totally a fair question. 100%, I understand. Like it doesn't seem to, or it seems in the abstract very scary to think about, right? Like, do I really want to sell a product that only costs, like, say $3 a piece, $10 a piece, whatever it is? But oh no, absolutely, James is living proof that absolutely can be done. I mean, as you said, some of it is also down to the fact that you're, I think, a very good marketer. Like, I think you're very smart about the way you promote your business, but at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that if you have a it's more about the need in the market than it is about necessarily what you charge. Particularly, as you said before, if you have a market that has a huge demand, you can maybe kind of set the price to some degree, right? I mean, just because the name tag is small doesn't mean you only have to charge $3 if you're the only guy in town making good name tags.
Yeah, and Joey Tracy in the chat there had said, like, at some point you're gonna have to stop marketing because people will come and find you. It is strange. At first we were marketing, and then suddenly it was like, well, we have to turn our ads off because I can't take any more jobs unless I hire a whole bunch of people and get a few extra lasers, which I could have done, but then somebody bought my business. So,
but that's also a better question to have to be asking yourself than, you know what I mean? How do I handle having too much work rather than not having enough? And look, I don't want to give the impression that the laser is a money printing machine. Clearly that's not the case. I mean, like, if you have exactly, it's a powerful tool, but do not undervalue the value of, like, putting together a strong business plan. And again, I would encourage you, I mean, if you're in the BC area, Montreal area, I mean, anywhere in Canada, reach out to your local Trotec rep. We're not here to just try and quickly sell you a machine, as James said. One of our favorite things, I think, James in particular, is to be able to come out and just sort of do like essentially a consultancy type visit. We'd love to, like, come and talk to you a little bit about, the business that you have in mind, and sort of look at, based on the facility you have, the sort of questions you have or the problems you're trying to solve with the laser, businesses big and small, what would be the best way to approach that? No obligation, but just to sort of say, look, if we see an opportunity that we think laser could really help you make your business stronger or more productive, then, we can make the suggestion.
Yeah, I see more people in a week and say to them, yeah, this isn't probably going to work for you. Maybe down the road, let's talk in a couple of years. Mm-hmm. I see more people like that than I do people who are like, you got to buy one. But meeting the people is the big thing, and having you guys meet folks like me and Don, and get to know us, so that when the need always is there, but when the real need arrives to get this machine into your manufacturing facility or something like that, then you already know me, you already know the process, we can talk the same language, and then we can quickly get something working. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out to us and have us come out and just consult. We never pressure you, because we don't want you to make a stupid mistake and then we have to try to help you get out of it. We want you to be successful right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I just noticed that we've almost been streaming for an hour already, which is crazy. I know. One thing I think
hour?
To I'm here if you are. But one thing I will mention to Joey, as you said, so Joey in the chat mentions it, and it's very, very true. At some point, jobs come to find you based on word of mouth. But also, don't be afraid, I think, to James's point from earlier, if you start out making these Christmas lamps that are on the screen here, right? Beautiful product. But somebody comes to you and asks, hey, can you personalize my Yeti bottle? I would encourage you to do it, because even though it may be outside of what you typically do, the laser can add a lot of value to a lot of different products in different ways, and personalization is a huge industry and remains a huge industry even in 2022. So even if it's outside of what you typically do, I know certainly firsthand from customers who say they did one Yeti bottle for one person, and it suddenly led to now twice yearly or 3 times yearly contracts to do corporate events where they're doing hundreds of Yeti bottles. So never underestimate the added value ads that a laser can do, even if it lands a little bit outside of what you're typically doing. I'd encourage you to maybe convey that to hey, this will be my first Yeti bottle I've ever done. So maybe let's do a simple, a sample test somewhere. But then also that's where it's great, as I said, to have that applications person, let's say, that you can reach out to a Trotec to sort of say, help, I have a customer who wants to do a Yeti bottle,
I have a customer who never wanted to do rotary stuff. He didn't buy the rotary with it.
Mm.
A police force came and asked him, oh, well, you're doing our name tags or whatever he was doing. Can you do our Yeti bottles too? We have about 100 here. And he said, yeah, absolutely. Well, then he bought a rotary, and did this job and paid the rotary off, and now he owns the rotary. But the problem was that they talked to the other police force, and he's more or less just on that now.
That happens more often than you would expect.
Yeah, and he's like, I never really wanted to do rotary, but he just thought he would take the work.
Why not, right?
Yeah.
One thing I think as we get to the top here that Lev reminded me, and he's absolutely right. If you are not as familiar as James, for example, or I know Chantal mentioned earlier in the chat about knowing. I think it was oh gosh, now I gotta find it. But yeah, Paint Shop Pro. If you're not as adept with design software right off the bat, that's perfectly fine. What you're seeing here on the screen are the sort of like laser files and laser type designs that you can buy on Etsy, and start right away with products that I would argue look pretty great in a lot of cases. That Christmas lantern we saw was awesome.
Yeah, there's lots of artists just selling designs, just the vector graphics files for these. So they're royalty free. You're not ripping somebody off. You're using something that somebody has created. You're giving them the money that they think is due to them for that design. If you're not a designer right off the bat, learn from other people. Buy these things. The graphics are not that expensive, and you're helping to promote people who actually did take the time to produce these files, and you're giving them what's due to them, and you're making boundless money. Pass that money off to your customer, because just taking the art from someone doesn't feel good. Believe me, I've experienced that.
It's true. Also, I can count the number of times that, or I can't count, the number of times that I've tried to learn a technique, and the best way I've found to do it is to either buy or find a royalty-free version of a file, and then just reverse engineer how the person has built it, just to try and figure out, from the how did you get here, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. You learn so much with it.
100%. And then one last kind of, again, to touch off with the materials, if you're interested in learning more about our materials, because we kind of got to pass through it a little bit quickly, it's scrolling along the bottom of the screen there, but you can always find Trotec materials at engraving-supplies.ca. That's the website there. It has all manner. I think there were a couple of 100 different materials. There's 200-300 different materials that you can try out. We run specials from time to time. You accumulate troll points in buying them, free points that you can redeem later for more free materials, training on your laser, whatever it might be. As James said, we are the manufacturer of a lot of these materials, and so we have great pride in them. And also, I would say probably the biggest advantage is if you have a Trotec laser and you're using our materials, it's a shortcut to finding those perfect settings. We have a lot of experience with the materials that we carry in-house, of course, right? Whereas if you're bringing us a material that we've never seen before, we can give you some more general advice. But, if you're using laser leather in this case, right, I'm going to be able to tell you, within a pretty good margin, kind of where you need to start. Whereas if you're just bringing me some leather, it's going to be a much tougher ask.
Look at it this way. Like I when I started, there wasn't this. And so I would go, if somebody wanted a plywood thing, I would go and find plywood. And so I would go to the local wood store and buy the plywood. And then I'd be wondering why the heck everything's all burnt and why things smell terrible. And then you don't know what's in it. You don't know how the glue is going to react to the laser. Well, obviously, if we sell it, it works awesome for the laser. So you could go out and get fake leather somewhere, and then wake up one day and your laser's all full of rust from all the PVC that you've been engraving. or you could just buy the stuff that works great for lasers. And this isn't a sales pitch by any means. Go use whatever material you want, but but by all means, if you want to trust the material, then get it from the people who actually sell the lasers too.
Yeah. If the reason you got excited about trying to do, gold foil is because you saw this video, I would suggest, at least for your first few, use this gold foil. I promise you, it's not very expensive, and it we can give you the results that you see in the video. Whereas, again, if it's something that we've never used before, I'm learning at the same time as you are, right? So I can't promise really anything at that point aside from, we'll give it our best. But if you want this beautiful piece that Anthony is showing off right here, and I mean, who wouldn't, right? It is pretty nice. We can help you get there a lot quicker. Listen, again, I want to, we're past an hour here. I think obviously we're going to have to try and do some more of these going forward.
We got to. We'll start it at this point though. There's so much more.
Absolutely. I will say, so thank you, Lev. John has a really great question here that I think, as long as we're talking about materials, it would be remiss of us not to touch on before we leave. Materials that are dangerous. James, you mentioned PVC. That would be always where I would start.
So that's the main one, because it's the most common material you're going to run into. PVC is cheap to make, really cheap to make, and it's prevalent throughout all products in all industries. And so my rule of thumb has always been, if you engrave a little piece of it and you smell it and it smells a little bit like bleach, discontinue use. Bleach smell is the chlorine, and it's the chlorine gas in the PVCs that will turn into a chlorine acid gas, which turns into hydrochloric acid, which will wreck your machine. Also, not to mention it's pretty toxic.
Will wreck your
exactly. So PVCs, but also like things with fluorine in them. Anything with an "ene" at the end, I believe, is not a good product to make as far as chemical compounds go. Fluorines, chlorine,
margarines.
Margarine.
Yeah.
I mean, don't eat margarine.
No, life's too short. Yes, and Joey exactly is right. And you can burn your lens. The personal safety thing is obviously, top of mind, but even if we could guarantee you escaped, scot-free, you risk breaking your laser. And really, obviously, nobody wants that, you or us, for certainly for any question.
Leather with chromium in it is kind of toxic. Also, wood with what's that preservative?
In the glue, sometimes in the glue of the MDF and stuff. Well, here's what I would say as a general rule, and it's not always perfect, it's not always possible, but just as like a general rule, if you're buying a new material and you can inquire from where you're buying it or the manufacturer for like an MSDS, like a safety sheet, the reason that I suggest that is because it will list everything that's in it, and it will list kind of what will happen to it under various circumstances, one of them being under extreme heat, which basically is where you're going to find the closest, the closest equivalent, I think, to, cutting it with a laser. So, anything that has like ABS also, for that matter. ABS isn't necessarily as unsafe, but it's going to flame.
No, it's not unsafe. It's sticky and flamey.
Yeah. So, you might not want to do, you can, but it's going to be at your discretion, right? But just, one of those things always to keep in mind. Really fast too, Heather, that's a great question. So is there a machine that'd be suitable for working in a smaller basement area? Once again, I would probably recommend the Rayjet. The Rayjet's got an 18x12 bed, so it's still a pretty, good size, but it is a small enough machine that you can keep it on a tabletop. One question that I think goes along with this, Heather, to your point, and I'm not sure maybe how you're doing this right now with a lot of our machines, you will need to exhaust them. So you'll need to either have, in our showrooms, often you'll see our big, beautiful Atmos ventilation systems, and they are great. But you can also exhaust, outside. You can do, you have some other options there. So depending on the space you're in, just one more thing to kind of keep in mind regarding sort of where and how you're going to be able to exhaust the dust and the debris that's coming off the material that you're cutting. Quick question there. So Lev just wanted to throw it to you, James. Your views on Glowforge. Obviously,
I love the Glowforge. I really do. It's a fantastic thing. I always tell people I actually own one. One of my customers just dropped one off after I gave them their 360 when they upgraded to their 360. They're a great little machine. And then my kids use it for their little homeschool stuff, and it's really cute. It's an awesome little machine. But then when I try to help them with it for some of their school projects, I get really frustrated because I think, like, how do people make money with this thing? Like, after I've used a Trotec, obviously you're like, you can't just hit go. Like, there's a lot of little things that you can't do. But I mean, they're fine.
We're spoiled to a certain degree.
They're a glass tube machine. They engrave very slowly. You have to cut with them. You can't really do an engraving job. I abandoned that. With the kids, this is like they're like, oh, I want all this and this and this, and I'm like, well, fine. Here we're gonna teach you how to digitize so you can do it all in vector lines. But the machine itself is all right. It's web-based software, so your design is going to go somewhere else to get digitized for laser engraving. Read the ELUA before producing anything with the machine. Read there, like, the legalese stuff. Read the entire thing first, guys. But I don't mind them. And the reason I don't mind them is because if you're successful with it, in 4 months you're coming to me for a Trotec, and you're saying to me, why didn't you tell me I'd be so successful? I wouldn't have spent $11,000 or $12,000 on this machine. And I said, well, why didn't you just buy a Rayjet? And it was just a little slightly bit more. If you amortize that over the time that you've been using it, it's basically the same price. And so Rayjet has the same functionality as that, but you're going to speed through jobs 90 inches per second as opposed to, I believe it's 16 inches per second. So huge difference in productivity. And that's the thing. As I said, I like the Glowforge. It's cool. Having one in my homeschool room is a joy, and my kids love it. But I wouldn't want to be running a business with it. That's just my opinion. That's my opinion piece for today.
Second rant over. No, I know but it's right. I mean, like, it's, James and I approach this particularly here, right, from a question of business, of production, right? Like, if you want just a laser to have in your home for fun, I mean, yeah, the Rayjet's awesome, but like, Glowforge is also like great to, mark your pens and pencils and do all the cool stuff you want to do with a laser, do your Yeti cups and make Christmas gifts and whatever.
You can't do Yeti cups.
You can't do okay, never mind.
No,
I take that back.
Sorry.
But at the same time, the instant that you want to go into business, those questions about, return on investment and the amount of time you're going to spend engraving or cutting or doing each piece, they have to come into play. And as you say, it's a question of being able to amortize that cost of against each piece that you're creating and how fast you can create them, how many you can create. These are all questions I would suggest you to look at. And then also, wherever possible, like James said earlier on, we encourage you to look around, right? Take one job, create a simple file yourself, bring it to us. We'll gladly do a sample for you, and then bring it around.
Bring the same file to everyone you're going to be
exactly
doing. The same file.
It's
important to use the same file, and not to use
quality of it.
Not to use their canned files, and not to use my canned files. Use the same file that you want to create to everyone, and have them build it, and have a video of that being built if they can't be in your area. They should be in your area, because if not, you may be in trouble. But if if the person selling you the machine is not in your area, that might be cause for alarm.
Well, and as a segue from that, if you are in the BC area, not only are our machines in your area, but we can bring them directly to your area. James, as you may have seen on YouTube, has a well-equipped laser van that has spawned many imitators across Canada, even here at Trotec. Our other sales guys enviously looking at James's van and outfitting their own vans with lasers, but nothing will ever match the original, the OG. James in his Kia once upon a time, or his Hyundai. What was it back in the day?
Kia. It was my skating car.
Okay. It's far nicer. The Kia did not have the laminate floors. The Kia did not have the luxuries that the current laser van does. Yes, bumping along in the back seat. If you are in the British Columbia area, I cannot recommend more highly that you reach out to James and have him either come visit you with the laser van, or if you're near our office in Langley, obviously we hope you'll come pay us a visit. It is worth your time. There you go. It was a fun demo and meeting with James. Awesome. See, that's what I love to hear. I think at the end of the day, James is exactly right. Just look at the time and speed that take that same file, whatever it is, to everybody, have them make a version of it, and then take those numbers, take those videos, and then crunch them yourself and see where the chips fall. I think at the end of the day, we're very, very proud of the machines that we sell here at Trotec, and I think for good reason. I think you can be very proud of the stuff you'll make with them. Out of curiosity, James, maybe closing things out here. Any final thoughts? Anything to leave off with for 2022 before end of the year?
Whatever laser you're going to use, make money with it. Don't
Yes.
sell yourself short. That's the number one rule. Make it fun, because once you're successful, you're going to come and see me at some point, whether it's at the very start or whether it's 4 months later after spending 10 grand. I'll eventually see you if you're very successful. So be successful. I want that for you.
Absolutely. No, same for me. I think at the end of the day, there's nothing that feels nicer than what James described at the very, sort of top of the stream, which is that, somebody coming to us and saying, hey, this cool laser, why didn't you tell me this was going to be so much fun? Or why didn't you tell me I could make all this money? Or, those are the best. That's the best feeling in the world, getting to have that conversation. So
Absolutely.
More of that, please. That's my New Year's resolution for you guys, if I can. Again, Lev had our contact info there on the screen.
Yep.
If anything, give us a shout. If you're outside of Canada, give your local Trotec a shout. We're here to help. We certainly hope we will see you guys at our new, stream that's going to be coming up in the new year. We're going to be doing, I think, maybe one of these a month for the time being, making them a little bit more polished.
Let's do it. This is the most important stuff that people can learn.
Oh, thank you, Lev. Also, yes, booking a physical demo or a web demo. If you're far away from where we are, that's no sweat. We're very happy to do online demos. But
White horse, yellow knife.
This is true.
Yep.
If you are further north than we are presently, listen, that won't stop us. We're like postmen, laser postmen.
We will internet through.
Indeed.
Through rain and snow.
Through poor connection.
All right, that's awesome.
Listen, a very happy holidays to everybody watching.
Yeah, Merry Christmas,
take care
everybody.
of yourselves. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you again in the new year. But in the time being, be kind, take care of yourself, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much, everyone.